I'm told that Harry is basically retreating into paranoia, severe depression, anxiety, that he's been crying over this.
I think this was the plan all along. It was to sort of build King Charles up and Britain to the idea that our king is finally going to get to see his grandchildren again, and then to whip that away from the king.
Sheer stupidity. That is the only explanation for the last week and a half or so of news regarding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's alleged return to the UK. It is sheer unbelievable stupidity, imbecility, idiocracy, so many things, like so many adjectives for being absolutely some of the dumbest people on the face of the planet when at least comes to royal news.
If you cared about security so much, why the hell are you telling the bad guys where you're going to be?
This is cruel to do to King Charles, to tease him with a potential visit to his grandchildren, and then when Harry doesn't get his way, rip the opportunity away.
Yeah, all of the above, all of the things that you said, Kinsey. It's a tool that he's using to try and leverage getting that security.
I've been told that Harry in tears, like his voice breaking when he's been speaking to people on the phone.
I mean, it's a joke.
After waiting 4 years to see his grandchildren, King Charles cleared his schedule and even offered them a royal residence. But in less than 48 hours, everything unraveled. What happened next shocked the public and left even some of his own supporters questioning his actions.
And then on Friday, just a couple of days ago, so Friday, June 27th, we got an itinerary for them. What event Meghan was supposed to be at. You know, what sort of the plans were. They were going to go visit Diana's gravesite in Althorp, and they were going to go to a hospital together. And then on Saturday, it was, no. Whoopsie daisy. We didn't get the security that we wanted. So yeah, now the kids and Meghan aren't going.
To understand why this situation hit harder than the usual Sussex headlines, it's important to look at what made this visit different. This wasn't just another rumored reunion that never happened. It was expected to be the long-awaited family reunion that even palace insiders had begun to believe would finally take place. King Charles had not seen Archie and Lilibet in person since the Platinum Jubilee. 4 years, there had been no face-to-face reunion, only the passage of time without the chance to spend meaningful moments with his grandchildren. That made the anticipation surrounding this visit especially significant.
The backdrop was also that poor King Charles has not seen his beloved grandchildren, Archie and Lilibet, for 4 years. They last came, I think, for the Queen's funeral.
When reports began circulating that Prince Harry was planning to bring his entire family back to Britain for the one-year-to-go celebration of the Invictus Games in Birmingham, many believed a long-awaited reunion was finally within reach. The optimism extended beyond royal watchers, with reports suggesting that King Charles himself was hopeful. Then, on Friday, June 27th, a detailed itinerary quietly appeared in the inboxes of royal correspondents. It painted the picture of a genuine homecoming, a hospital visit by Meghan, marking what would have been her first public appearance in the UK in 6 years, and a private visit to Princess Diana's grave with the children.
Harry and Meghan did decide to announce it to all of the media privately on Friday, and they revealed that Meghan would be visiting a hospital. Of course she would, in her first UK engagement for 6 years. Here was the reporting in the Pro-Sussex.
The itinerary also included Prince Harry attending a children's bereavement charity event, participating in a symposium supporting wounded veterans, and visiting the Chelsea pensioners. Every event came with specific dates, locations, and a detailed schedule. This wasn't vague speculation or another round of royal rumors. It appeared to be a carefully organized plan with names, times, and places already set.
Because you don't go and say something like, definitively, we're going to the UK, if you don't know if the security you delusionally think you need is going to be there. If the government says no, which it should have, by the way, you don't say anything until you're sure. And if you're just going to, I think some people think Harry and Meghan just enjoy the chaos.
For about 24 hours, it all seemed completely real. Sources close to the palace described King Charles as genuinely excited, hopeful even that after everything, the lawsuits, the book, the documentary, This might finally mark a small step towards something resembling a normal family relationship. Then, almost as quickly as it appeared, things began to unravel. And the way it fell apart is, in many ways, the hardest part to make sense of.
Well, just literally 21 hours later, security stub. Harry may not bring Meghan and the kids to UK next month as security request rejected days after King's olive branch.
This is where things start to get genuinely confusing and where many people began asking what was really happening behind the scenes. On Friday night, just before 9 p.m., a royal editor published a detailed, upbeat report about the upcoming visit. It described Archie and Lilibet visiting their grandmother's grave for the first time and Meghan making a return to a UK hospital. Framed almost like the beginning of a redemption arc, the kind of story some palace insiders had reportedly hoped to tell for years. Then, just 21 hours later, a very different headline emerged. Security had been rejected.
Friday,
Yes.
they privately sent an itinerary of their trip to the WhatsApp group that the Sussex communication team manages. It was Saturday where Harry leaked to the media that he, in fact, did not get the security. The meltdown begins on Saturday, where Harry tells some outlets, I did not get the security that I expected to get.
Reports then suggested that Prince Harry was reconsidering bringing Meghan and the children at all. The same trip was now being described in two completely contradictory ways, separated by less than a day. So which version was true? According to multiple people familiar with the situation, the key detail that doesn't quite add up is this. Nothing about Prince Harry's actual security arrangements had changed.
Now we just have to stick to the facts here. There was never a change to security. There was never any indication that there was going to be a change to security. Harry's security situation has been exactly this since Meg said.
Not the threat level, not the ruling, and not the policy. By several accounts, it was the same security arrangement that has been in place since he stepped back from royal duties years ago. There was no new information and no new indication of increased danger.
That would have been intelligence provided both by MI5 and MI6 to see if there had been any amplification of threat, obviously against Harry or Meghan. And as soon as they would find out that there's nothing notable on their radar, no intelligence that's coming in to construe that there would be anything serious in terms of a threat against them, over and beyond just being people in the public eye, then there's every good likelihood they'd say, you know what, why are we going to bother going through the rest of that process if we haven't got the origins and foundation from which to necessitate doing an actual full review?
In fact, some insiders have gone further, suggesting that the idea security was ever actually reconsidered in the first place may have been, at best, a media construct. According to this view, it was something reported as a possibility long before any official decision had even been made.
If they knew the security was outstanding, which I think they did, the security had to be outstanding. And that makes sense. It takes a while to do a security evaluation, and then they can release officers if needed. They did the security evaluation, and they're like, yeah, no, there's just no reason. And Harry and Meghan are like, but we just told everybody.
Which leaves one obvious question hanging over the entire story. If nothing on the ground had changed, why did the headlines shift so dramatically? That's the question many royal insiders keep returning to. Was this truly Prince Harry's decision, or was someone else influencing the process all along? Security expert Will Geddes, who has spent decades working with high-profile celebrities and clients, was asked directly about the situation. He didn't soften his response. His read on events points squarely toward Meghan, not Harry, as the one pushing most strongly.
I think this is primarily driven by Meghan. I think Harry, to a certain extent, probably couldn't care less. I think Meghan is looking for the whole prestige, the whole pomp and circumstance, all the dressings that would come from association or being part of the royal family.
Geddes' theory is that Prince Harry, left on his own, likely wouldn't be pursuing this issue with the same level of intensity. Meghan, in his view, wants the full level of protection and presence, the motorcades, the closed-off streets, and the kind of security typically associated with an active head of state, rather than a private citizen who stepped away from royal duties years ago.
I think for Meghan to keep Harry away from the UK, because she's good at manipulating him, I think, and only because he's a dense dude. Her manipulation skills are meager at best, but he's dumb, so he falls for it.
And here's the detail that really stuck with people. Getty said he believes Prince Harry's own security team has likely told him privately that this trip is entirely manageable without the need for additional armed protection. "We can handle this," he suggested they may have said. "It's not a problem." But according to Getty, that simply may not be the answer either Harry or Meghan wanted to hear. Went even further, suggesting that some of Harry's recent overseas trips to places like Ukraine and Nigeria may have been less about the causes themselves and more about strengthening the argument that he requires heightened protection wherever he goes.
Where the principal will dab their fingers into the fire, and trips to Ukraine is a great example. So what they'll try and do is they'll go, look, I am a risk, that people are out to get me, there is a threat against me. And I've seen this with principals who I've usually subsequently dropped, that they go and invite trouble, and they try and provoke situations and reactions.
So if this was never really about safety in the first place, what was it actually about? This is where the story takes a more calculated turn. According to several commentators who have been following the situation for years, the theory goes like this: publicly announce the visit, generate interest in the UK, and, more importantly, get King Charles emotionally invested in the idea of finally seeing his grandchildren. Then, once that expectation is established, introduce the issue of security rejection and allow the pressure to build naturally. The idea, as some suggest, would be that King Charles, faced with the possibility of losing the moment entirely, might feel compelled to intervene.
Honestly, it was so obvious that Prince Harry was using this trip to the United Kingdom as another bargaining tool, as another attempt to bounce his father, as emotional blackmail.
There's just one major problem with that theory. King Charles cannot legally intervene. Security decisions for members of the royal family are handled entirely by RAVEC, the Royal and VIP Executive Committee, and the government, not the monarch.
King Charles is a serious man. He knows where his power begins and ends. He has no power to make that decision. He cannot preside over government decisions. The decision on who to give armed police protection to in terms of the royal family is the government's consideration.
Even if King Charles wanted to personally guarantee his grandchildren's protection, the system simply isn't designed to allow it. And that, according to Getty, is why this entire approach was doomed from the start. RAVEC is not built to bend to royal sentiment or family pressure. Its purpose, existing independently from the crown, is to ensure that decisions like these cannot be influenced by personal relationships, no matter how senior. There is also a larger risk that often goes unspoken. If Prince Harry were ever granted special treatment outside normal protocol, it could open the door for other visiting dignitaries or former royals to demand the same exceptions. The system, by design, is not meant to make allowances based on status or circumstance. Getty himself even made a half-joking offer on the matter. If Harry's security team truly cannot manage a family visit to the UK, Harry is welcome to call him directly.
And if his security team can't manage him, the wife, and the kids coming to the UK, he is more than welcome to give me a call.
Well, that's a nice offer.
And then the story took a turn that shifted public sympathy almost overnight. Journalist Tom Sykes reported that Prince Harry had been overheard in tears during private phone calls while the family was vacationing in Portugal, his voice reportedly breaking. Other sources described a pattern of paranoia, anxiety, and what one source bluntly called profound mental dysfunction.
Really come out against the Duke, saying paranoid Prince Harry has betrayed everyone and will sacrifice anyone to get what he wants. And he says at the heart of the discredited Sussex brand sits a man, Harry, in the throes of some kind of profound mental dysfunction.
On paper, that might sound like something that would generate sympathy, a son distressed at the possibility of losing time with his father. But that's not how it landed publicly. Instead of compassion, the reaction from commentators, many of whom had previously given Prince Harry the benefit of the doubt, turned sharply critical. Words like paranoid and delusional began appearing across multiple outlets within the same news cycle, along with comparisons to a toddler throwing a tantrum.
If you're going to start throwing your toys out the pram and behaving like a spoiled brat, which is ultimately what he's doing, then they're going to be somewhat resistant to not going above and beyond in terms of facilitation.
What made the situation worse, according to several reports, was the location itself. The family was reportedly staying near a luxury resort, which raised questions among commentators about how someone allegedly in crisis over security concerns could be vacationing comfortably just a short distance from the country he has described as too dangerous to enter.
We suspect that they're at that luxury resort that Jack Brooksbank's managers, and where they're said to have purchased the property. But it was in People magazine, which, as we know, is the sort of school magazine of the Sussexes, where they put all their notices. So they are in Portugal. But yeah, I've been told that Harry in tears, like his voice breaking when he's been speaking to people on the phone.
This was the moment the public narrative shifted. What Harry's camp framed as heartbreak was increasingly being interpreted by commentators as something closer to a meltdown over not getting his way.
I think for Harry, the bruised ego of not being important anymore is really behind so much of this security delusion. This was an incredibly stupid decision. I've said that a lot, but it is true. It's dumb. They look like imbeciles.
Just when it seemed like the story couldn't get any messier, it did. Reports began circulating that Prince Harry had quietly accepted an offer to stay at a royal residence during the visit, which on its face appeared to be a genuine olive branch.
We are hearing that the king has reportedly offered accommodation at a royal residence. And I've heard that before, like in years past, that the king has offered Harry a place to stay and Harry's denied it. So I'm not too surprised by this. I think there's additional outrage because Meghan's in the loop and people don't want her to fall back into a princess moment where she feels like she's back in the fold because she's under a royal roof. But from a security standpoint, does staying inside a royal estate significantly reduce risk? I mean, I think that's how can you complain about security when you've got armed guards outside Buckingham Palace?
A sign that perhaps things were finally being smoothed over behind the scenes. Except Buckingham Palace correspondent Rebecca English shut that claim down almost immediately.
Rebecca English, who, of course, writes on behalf of Buckingham Palace as the head of the Royal Rota, said that after a week of claim, counterclaim, reverse ferreting and suggestions about what individuals may think, as regards reports Prince Harry has accepted an offer of accommodation on the royal estate, no such overture is understood to have been received by the royal household.
Her statement left no room for interpretation. No such offer was understood to have been received by the royal household at all. Nothing under discussion, nothing being finalized, just a flat, direct denial. So now there were two completely different versions of events, one coming from sources close to the Sussexes and another coming directly from the palace itself.
The palace's role in this as well, and they can't control what Harry and Meghan do. Of course they cannot. But I think, again, that their lack of being able to manage the narrative, manage Harry and Meghan in many ways, and shut things down if things either aren't true or if it's in the middle of a negotiation, something like that. The palace is just constantly letting these things churn, and it does make the palace look bad too.
They cannot both be true. And once that contradiction became public, the specific details almost stopped mattering. What mattered was that, once again, there was no shared agreement on what was actually happening.
So as Brittany of the Royal News Network put it, being part of Harry and Meghan's PR team must be absolute hell. The series of absolute blunders over their just 5-day visit is insane.
If you want to watch a narrative collapse in real time, this is the part of the story to pay attention to. One royal correspondent even argued that it is bizarre Prince Harry and Meghan's children receive less security than Taylor Swift does when she performs in the UK.
One of them is Chris Shipp, who is the royal editor for Woke ITV News, and he has actually been community noted on X over this. So he posted the arguments over Prince Harry's UK security rumble on. Now Harry considering not bringing Meghan and children with him to UK next week after being told he will get nothing more than the police phone number for a liaison officer. Whatever your view of Harry and Meghan and their decision to leave the royal family, it seems bizarre that King Charles's son and grandchildren, who are 5th, 6th and 7th in line to the British throne, get zero public security, but Taylor Swift does when she is in the UK.
On the surface, it sounds like a reasonable comparison. But it didn't hold up for long once the facts were examined. Within hours, That claim was accompanied by a public fact-check. The correction noted that Taylor Swift's single instance of police protection followed a specific, credible terror threat involving a stadium audience of tens of thousands. It was tied to the kind of heightened security environment seen after incidents such as the Manchester Arena attack years earlier.
Well, those were totally two different situations. The security for Taylor's events were the result of terrorist threats against her concerts. That's why they did it. That's why they moved some of her concerts that I think were originally supposed to be in Austria to London because of threats. And so when you are gathering 100,000 people in a stadium for a concert, and of course with the history of the Manchester terrorist attack against an Ariana Grande concert, the government has a right to be concerned about a situation like that.
It was a direct response to an active, identified threat, and several senior government officials were reportedly in attendance that night as well.
The Ariana Grande is a fantastic comparable example because obviously the Manchester Arena bombing in 2017 by Salman Abedi was a horrific attack against, not against Taylor necessarily, but against her audience. And many, many children died in that horrific suicide attack. So when we look at Harry and Meghan, we can't put them in the same category.
Compare that to Prince Harry's situation. A private citizen traveling with his own private security team, with no new intelligence indicating any specific threat against him.
Harry, in this instance, I hate to tell him this, but he's constitutionally irrelevant, and so are his children. And as time marches on, and this happens in every single royal family, as time marches on, Harry will get more and more and more irrelevant, and so will his children.
Not remotely the same scenario, and the public response made that clear almost immediately. While the leaks, denials, and contradicting headlines continued to unfold, something else was happening almost entirely under the radar. Catherine, Princess of Wales, had quietly completed the National Three Peaks Challenge, including Snowdon in Wales, climbing all three of Britain's highest mountains within 24 hours in support of the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity, the hospital that treated her.
Catherine, the Princess of Wales, that has just been announced, has completed the Three Peaks Challenge for the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity. And when you think about Catherine and compare it again to the stupidity we are going to go over, I just feel like Catherine is just an example of how royals can do it really, really well.
There was no itinerary leaked beforehand, no press release building anticipation, and no public discussion about security arrangements or logistics. She simply did it, and the public only learned afterward that it had happened at all. She reached the final peak, Snowdon, as the sun was setting on Sunday evening, greeted not by a camera crew, but by her husband, their 3 children, and her parents waiting at the base.
Greeted at the base of Snowdon on Sunday evening by Prince William, their 3 children, her parents, Carol and Michael Middleton, and brother James.
In a short video released afterward, she spoke directly about what the challenge meant to her.
Lots of people have asked me why I'm doing this challenge, and partly it's personal. I'm so grateful to be here, to be strong enough to walk these hills. But more importantly, it's to give something back and acknowledge really all the incredible work going on up and down this country. I've met some incredible people, those people who are living with and beyond cancer. And I know personally how difficult that journey is.
The timing, landing in the exact same week as the Sussex security controversy, did not go unnoticed by those watching closely.
Did you see how she was talking? She had to say a couple of sentences and then pause and think. And then she had to say a couple of sentences and then think and use her brain and not have something written for her by her poor assistants that get mistreated and fired. Did you see it, Meghan? That's called authentic. That's authentic. That's real.
Here's the part that might not surprise many people watching closely. For weeks, viewers in the comments had already been saying it, that the trip was never fully solid to begin with. Some predicted the security issue would end up becoming the excuse. Others were more direct. Don't believe it until they actually land in the UK. To be fair, whether the entire visit was ever intended as a form of theater remains speculation. There is no way to prove intent, and that should be stated clearly. But what isn't speculation is the pattern. This now marks one of several occasions in recent years where a high-profile Sussex announcement has shifted or fallen apart within days of being made public. Nigeria, Colombia, and now this. At a certain point, repeated outcomes like that begin to look less like coincidence and more like a pattern. And many viewers had already pointed that out long before this week's headlines caught up. Oh, where does all of this leave the king? By most accounts, Charles remains personally open to a meeting and has even reportedly floated the idea of Meghan and the children flying in for a single day rather than a longer visit. But that suggestion is said not to have broad support within the family. Prince William, according to several sources, is not currently interested in any reconciliation, and Queen Camilla is said to be even less receptive. That leaves King Charles in a difficult position, a father who genuinely wants to see his grandchildren, but surrounded by advisors and family members who believe the situation has already taken too heavy a toll.
The king doesn't miss Prince Harry. The king does not recognize this Prince Harry. You know, the king is not going to bend over backwards because he doesn't even know who this new person is that has developed over the last few years, capable of writing such a hateful book, capable of participating in a docuseries which accuses the royal family of racism, years of racism, and all of the chaos that they've stirred in the last few years.